and he was into more like rock. I mean, he showed me all the stuff that I ended up listening to, but it was always like later. Like he showed me Tool when I was in middle school, and I was like, I don't really like this. And then in high school, I'm like, oh my God, this is my favorite band.
Right. Okay. My name's Adam, and this is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new music coming out with Dopapod.
Cool.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, first off, I did see or read the band started in Boston at Berkeley. Were you born and raised in the Boston area, or where were you born and raised?
So I'm actually from Boulder, Colorado.
Okay. Talk to me about that.
Yes. I grew up in a very supportive family. My mom did some music and definitely had my older brother and I start piano lessons, it's like first, second grade.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, she like plays a little bit of piano and mostly plays flute, but she was just very, you guys should play some music. So, super grateful for that. It was really fun. I got pretty good at piano, but then, and then later my brother started to take drum lessons. And of course I was like, well, I want to do that too. And
older brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, his name's Brian. And I'm sure, looking back at it later, it's like, oh, I'm sure that worked out really well for my parents to just be like, here, you take these two kids for an hour instead of just one of these for half an hour.
Right. So did they have to buy two drum kits or just one? You guys had to trade off?
Yeah, just one.
Okay.
And so that was really great. I really got into drums. And then, of course, he went on to start taking some guitar. So I followed to that too. But drums really stuck with me. That was just what I felt the best at and had the most fun doing. So, yeah. And then, I was doing music here in Colorado. I went to CU for 2 years doing the music program, percussion department.
Okay.
And that was really cool, but I felt like there wasn't really much like drum set playing there.
Was it more like drumline, like marching band stuff?
No, it was more like marimba, xylophone.
Oh, okay.
And then like concert percussion. So like snare drum, those kinds of things. It was super fun. Loved doing that stuff, but I was just like feeling very like, I want to play in a rock band. Like,
right. Okay. Well, so, to back up a little bit here. So did you play like in percussion through like middle school band and high school band and everything? Were you like in the jazz band? Like how did that work as far as like your education went?
Yeah, we had concert band in middle school, and then we had jazz band in middle school as well. So the last couple of years of that were I did drum set and in the jazz band, and then definitely did that into high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Get out of here. Sorry. My high school jazz band was like really good. It was like known in the state to be one of the better jazz band outfits. So that was super fun. And so like, I would do like jazz band in school on drum set, and then started a bunch of like heavy metal rock bands, with my friends.
Right. Did you ever play with your brother? I mean, it sounds like your brother went on to guitar and you stayed on drums.
We both had bands and we both played lots of instruments, but we were kind of like always on a different page in our like musical interests. And he was into more like rock. I mean, he showed me all the stuff that I ended up listening to, but it was always like later. Like he showed me Tool when I was in middle school, and I was like, I don't really like this. And then in high school, I'm like, oh my God, this is my favorite band.
Right. So, okay.
He was in more like alternative, like 311 and like kind of that stuff. And that wasn't really my thing. I was into like punk rock, but it was more like NoFX and like, fast thrash.
Where you could play fast, fast songs. That's cool. Does he still play? I'm just curious now.
He does like a little bit, just like his bedroom stuff.
Not professionally.
Yeah, he doesn't really play out or anything.
Okay. So you ended up going to college for 2 years. You said at Colorado University?
University of Colorado in Boulder.
Or University of Colorado. Okay. And you went there for 2 years, and you were studying music at the school?
Yeah. So I was in the music department, the percussion department, and Yep.
Was it just not like obviously Berkeley is known for what it's known for. So was that even something you like in the beginning, like when you're graduating high school, were you not interested in going there, or like tell me about like going to, University of Colorado and then leaving to go then to
Right.
Berkeley?
Yeah, it was like, Colorado was easy. It's in the same town I grew up in. So I didn't at the time really have a desire to like move out of Colorado, and especially
Got it.
Boulder. Um, so that's why I first stayed, and it was easy enough to get into CU and, still be home kind of,
Hmm.
as I also had these other bands happening. So,
Okay.
out education. So I was like, wanted to be around and still do those projects. And then, yeah, after the first summer, we came back to the percussion department, like first meeting, and the head of the percussion department was this great, amazingly talented, like unbelievable percussionist musician. He was asking us what we did over the summer, and I was like, "Oh man, I went to all these shows at Red Rocks, and I saw, Primus and 311 and the Wailers and Nine Inch Nails, all this stuff, whatever,
Hmm.
And he was like, I think there was a Dead show there too, and he was like, I think I've heard of one of those bands, and I was like, man, I don't want to be learning from this guy. Like, it's like,
He
this
doesn't
guy's
rock enough.
awesome, but I want to be doing something more modern. And really, that was the impetus. So, it's like we looked into Berkeley and we could make it happen, and that was just it. It's just like literally, I was studying classical percussion at CU,
Hmm.
and the opportunities after that are like, orchestras and symphonies, and that's all great, but that just wasn't what I was interested in. So it's like Berkeley is modern music,
Hmm.
uh, jazz, rock, you know, all that kind of stuff. So
Since you're already attending University of Colorado in the music department, was it pretty easy to transfer over to Berkeley, or did they make you go through the whole audition process?
what's funny is at the time they weren't doing auditions to get in, and that is my loose understanding, is that kind of like fluctuates,
Hmm.
depending on probably how many people they want or need to be attending, um,
Okay.
which will go up and down. It's funny. It's like after we all finished, they built this like skyscraper next to the building that we first went into, and it's just like, okay, cool, that's where my money went.
Oh, right, right. Okay.
But so I think at the time, and it's always different too, depending on the president that they have of the school.
Okay.
I think they were like going through a president change at the time, but anyways, I didn't
Hmm.
have to audition.
Okay.
They have you sort of write up a thing for yourself, like an intro essay, and they just want to make sure that you have some experience playing music, because they not all the majors there are performance based. They just want to know
Okay.
they some idea what it's like to be a musician, because there's like music therapy, there's obviously the recording
Oh,
of, there's music
yeah.
business. So like if you're a musician and they know that you know what it's like to be on the other side of the glass, stay in a studio, then you'll be able to work with people better. And same with like music business. If you know what it's like to be a musician, you're going to have a better idea of what it is to be a musician needing business things. So,
Right, right, right. That makes a lot of sense. It's
so
interesting because I've interviewed a lot of people that have went to Berkeley, and everyone's got a different tale of how they got in. It's like I had to do like this crazy, sight reading audition and this, that, and the other thing, and or like they just let me in. I didn't have to do
yeah,
anything,
yeah,
which
I will
is
say some of the people that were in the same year that I got in, I was like, oh, you just got a guitar for high school graduation present, didn't you?
that's what I was about to say. Like I wonder how many of the people just went in there thinking like, oh, this is yeah, I got this, and then just was way over their head.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot. People are like, "Oh, I'm going to go to be a rock star school," and then they're like, "No, you have to read music and study all this." And
You have to know
the
what you're
funny,
doing.
yeah, and the funny thing,
That's
like they don't really transfer credits in, so I did have to like you sort of maybe like audition or test out of classes, some of which that
to get
done plenty
credits.
in the other school, but they used a different book or a different system slightly. So you can be like, listen, I know how to do this music theory, so put me into the fourth level or whatever. But like, they don't just take like direct
Right.
credit.
They want to make sure you're there they get 4 years of money out of you.
Yeah, also true.
Okay, well, then the band starts there. Is that kind of how, or were you?
Yeah.
Is that how
So,
you guys kind of
and
met?
my,
Like, tell me,
yeah,
like, so you get there, and then what happens first?
so I had a bunch of other bands before Dopapod, um, including a video game cover band. That was my first band there.
Oh,
And then I had
rad.
another band. Yeah, that was really fun. We were like Dream Theater playing Nintendo songs.
That's so amazing.
Seven string guitar, froggy guys, like just shredding.
That's
Some of them
awesome.
didn't even know the games because they were too young, but we were just like, here's the music. And they're like, sick, this is awesome. And just shred. So, and then I had another band that was called Cash Fools that was like blues rock, Chili Peppers, Jimi Hendrix, super fun. But yeah, and actually, so the way I met Dopapod was, so they were already at least a duo, if not moving into a trio at the time that I met them. So it was
Mm-hmm.
Eli on keys and Mikey Karuba, who was in Turquoise, on drums. And then they added Rob on guitar at some point. But right around that time, I had a show with Cashed Fools, and I would often do a show and then do like an after party somewhere with more music. So I had like recently met Eli and knew about Dopapod, and I was like, hey, Eli, do you want to come play this after party that we're trying to do? And he was like, sure. And then as the date came, we weren't going to do the after party. And he was also like, hey, we can't do it because we're going to go play this festival in upstate New York. And he was like, it was like the next day, so but on the same weekend. But he was like,
Mm-hmm.
you should come to this festival. And I had also been playing percussion with random bands kind of like all the time at that time. So I was like, can I just come and play some percussion with you guys? And he was like, sure. So we had like a little rehearsal. I just brought like a conga and a cowbell, and everyone was like, this is really cool. We should do this. So we did that show. And then I just stayed on in percussion. And that was like 2009. So they had already done like a good amount of shows either as the trio, but that's also when Chuck was coming in on bass, like right around that same time.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, the 5-piece was formed.
Okay. And so you did that show, and then, well, when's the band kind of take off? Did you guys all finish Berkeley, and then the band
Yeah,
started building? Like,
somewhere in that 2009, 2010, we started to do some like tours.
okay.
Eli, this guy named Josh Phillips, he had a band called Josh Phillips Folk Festival out of Asheville, and he organized like something like 5 or 10 days in the Northeast where they would come up and open for us, and then 5 or 10 days in the Southeast, and we would open for them. So we did that, and that was just kind of the beginning of our touring. So we did a couple of those, and then all of this at the same time. Mikey, was playing drums, me playing percussion, Eli on keys. We were also in Turquoise and performing
Oh, at the same time.
at the same time. And so
Okay.
at some point, it became clear that both were too busy for such crossover. So Mikey went to drums in Turquoise, and I took over drums in Dopapod. And that's right about when both bands really just like started touring heavily. So it's like late 2010 is when I think we got like a booking agent, and we got our van and trailer and all that stuff, and just really started hitting the road.
Okay. And was it from there? I mean, like, were you doing like full like US tours at this point, or was it short little runs, or?
Yeah, we started spiraling out. So a lot of Northeast, obviously, which is very
Mhm.
good for the jam scene, and then inching into the South and inching into the Midwest. We never even got to Colorado until I think late 2011. But yeah, we would go out for like 6 weeks at a time, shows almost every night, but just spiraling out further and further,
Mhm.
going
And
up and
what
down.
would, like, as you're doing that, like, obviously you're building a fan base, and like, what would you say like the next kind of milestone in your guys' career was?
That's a good question. I think it was probably like a pretty steady growth and just consistent touring like that. And
Mhm.
once we started getting onto like bigger festivals and sort of feeling that hype around us and the momentum and the energy, we felt pretty buzzed, like we were buzzing as a band. And
Mhm.
the growth was like strong, and you could feel it. So it's pretty steady like that for a couple of years, and then I think we got like, I guess around mid 2013, we started working with a new booking agent, and some of our management stuff changed. But that was really a big step for us. And then also that is when I left the band for a little while.
Oh, okay. So did you left to pursue other interests? I mean, I don't even know if you want to go into it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the short story is I was like pretty overwhelmed by the road, had some other personal stuff going on. So I took some time off to just like relax and check in with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I went to like a 10-day meditation thing, and that just like, I mean, that set me up for a lot of like a huge life change. So they had taken on another drummer as a substitute for like a couple of months, and then I was like, hey guys, I'm ready to come back. And they're like, well, we're going to stick with this guy. And
ouch, that must have been pretty like heartbreaking, I would think, right?
it definitely was. And it was understandable, like, especially looking back, it's just like, the road just gets so intense and makes you crazy. You're not like checking in with yourself or with the team consistently, then it can really explode. And that's pretty much what happened. It was like, just a hard left turn.
Yeah. And once you get the news that they're going to keep this guy, like, I mean, your identity as a drummer, do you just start trying to find another band to do, or like how do you handle that?
Yeah, like, it was heartbreaking for my momentum as like a person with this group and my identity there, but I also have always been in like tons of other bands. Okay. So, I had a band called Elephant Wrecking Ball, which was also started right around the same time I joined Dopapod. And also Chuck, the bass player of Dopapod, and I had another band called Mom and Dad, which also started right around that same time. And so immediately it was just like, all right, all these other groups, like, let's go for it. I'm available now. And so, I was able to keep playing and keep creating, keep being a drummer. I mean, it's like, even my mom said it. She was like, even if you're not in that band, like, it's not like you're going to stop doing this,
Right.
So, so it was just really a big shift.
Yeah. And then how many years until you like rejoined the band, and like, how did that all happen?
So I would say like 2016, maybe late 2015, by then, like, I'm friends with everybody again. We've had our space and time, and it's all good. And they were starting to reach out and just, kind of loosely chat about like maybe this idea, it was weird. I don't know how much of this stuff is like shareable on the interviews. I don't know if this is like pending everyone else in the band's approval, but they were like, we're really interested in having you come back. And so then at some point we just kind of like made the decision, and I came back like late summer 2016.
Okay. And then just from there, yeah, obviously you've still been playing with them since then. I'm just curious because I did see like on your guys' Wikipedia page that you played Red Rocks in 2015. Was that a show that you were able to be a part of, or?
It was. So,
and that must have been huge for you, right? I mean, to be playing where you grew up, and probably the venue that you said you saw all these amazing bands at.
Totally. Yeah. I went to the show, and I think because of all that, they like wanted to invite me to, sit in on a song and, be a part of it. So I did go, and I sat in on one song, and that was like, obviously amazing and an honor. It was super cool.
That is awesome. That's cool that you were able to play it still, no matter the circumstance or whatever. That's awesome. So when you rejoined the band in 2016, and from there, are you guys back on the road? I mean, you put out at least 2 records within the next couple of years from that point.
We got back on the road right away. I got back in at the end of festival season, and then we did a huge tour with Pigeons Playing Ping Pong.
Oh, cool. I love that band.
Yeah, it was like co-headlining, so we would like alternate who was like playing first or whatever. So that was my first tour back. And then I think in the following summer we set up and recorded tons of music. for the next album, which I think was Megagem.
Mm-hmm.
And we recorded so much stuff that like we couldn't even put it all out because we decided to do a vinyl, which is obviously very limited.
Right.
So we had other recordings that I think we put out on other albums after that.
Okay.
That session, but.
And then coming like, I mean, well, you put a record out in 2019. Did you have a chance to really tour on that album or really support that album before the pandemic?
Yeah. So do you know about the break that we took?
I don't.
Okay. So the end of 2017, or really it was like in the summer of 2017, Chuck and our light guy, Luke, they were like, we want to take a break.
Yeah, I did read that you guys went on like a hiatus and had like solo projects, right? And other things
Yeah,
going on. Okay.
We
So
took a year off of Dopapod, like a very planned calendar year at least.
okay.
Just to, just settle. Same kind of thing that I had been going for, but and it ended up being a really great thing. Just time to reset, and like take inventory on like everything in your life and as a band and all that kind of stuff. And so so then we come back April of 2019, and we kept it pretty limited. We did like a handful of festivals over the summer, and then like a small number of shows in the fall. And we had, I think, a pretty decent tour booked for 2020 winter. And yeah, we did a West Coast run, and then it happened.
Were you on the road when it was shutting down?
Yeah, we were like on March 12th, we were flying in to Columbus, Ohio, and we're getting, so our buddy who was a crew guy of ours was running the venue that we were going to go play at on March 13th. And he's texting all of us like the governor's shutting down big gatherings. We were supposed to do like 1,000-person outdoor thing in a huge tent, and because they have like a small venue, they do it outside. And then he's like, I'm moving it inside. We're going to do 250. And then later that day, it's 50 people. And like, this is all this like guidelines are coming in or whatever. So we're all just like traveling that day, like into this. We're like, what the fuck is going to happen here? And then basically we were like, all right, well, we're not going to do that show. And we called up some buddies who have a studio, and we knew some like film crew kind of people. And so we were able to basically that day pull off a live stream.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I remember like being in the airport before I was even on my flight, talking to another buddy of mine who was like, he had been, I don't know, maybe a little more hip to what was about to go down than other people at that moment. He was like, man, live streams, that's going to be the thing, like over the next year, like, this is what's going to go down. And then we ended up, doing this, like, it was just funny because it felt like we were like the first ever live stream.
Right. No, I was going to say, it sounds like it.
So
you were like pioneering that. Well, that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's wow. So were you, I mean, you've obviously flew into Columbus, Ohio, but before that, did you have shows like throughout the front of March?
We had been doing some weekends, and we were like in the studio and then do weekend shows, and then the studio weekend shows. And yeah, I remember actually Washington, D.C., we played a show, and that day was the first day where it was like no handshakes. It was like,
oh yeah,
bumps and elbows.
The elbows. Like, yeah, I remember that.
They were shifting into that, and then it was like probably the following weekend was that 12th, 13th.
Wow. Yeah, the last interview I did in person was like right around that same time, and it was with G Love from G Love and Special Sauce, and it was like in that weird time where it was like it was a thing, like people knew about it, and like it was like we kind of did the elbow, but we still took a picture all close to each other, which is funny. But it was like kind of like we were kind of joking about it a little bit, because it was like obviously no one knew the extent of what was really happening, and then it was like, okay, wow, that it happened so fast. Like the NBA shuts down, and then like Tom Hanks gets it, and then it's like, we should really consider what's really happening here. But I didn't know if you were seeing any sort of decline in like maybe you knew you sold 1,000 tickets and only 300 people showed up or anything like that.
Yeah, No, it all just collapsed instantaneously. So
Oh,
no,
wow. No gradual.
yeah.
Wow. But at least you were able to pull off the live stream. What was that like?
Yeah, it was wild. It's like it was fortunate to be inside of like a nice studio. So we had a nice room for us to set up in. And
Mhm.
we did some silly shit with our lights where they were like literally like we were kind of set up in a tight circle and the lights were like over us, because we
Oh,
had
right.
with us and everything. So we wanted to make it cool. We had a couple cameras and everything. And so yeah, we're just like playing to ourselves and to like the handful of people in the control room. And it's like we would rock out and do this like epic jam and finish this song, and then it's just like like crickets
Silence.
to us. Like, eventually the dudes in the control room would like turn on the microphone for them and be like, yeah, like they're all cheering.
Okay.
That was so weird.
They show you like the screen of all the thumbs and hearts coming
Yeah.
up. Oh, wow. Okay. So then how quickly after you get back do you start working on, the new music and what you have coming out soon?
As far as returning from
Yeah, no,
the
from like, you
pandemic,
get home from the pandemic's in full swing, and I'm sure
yeah,
for a while everyone's just like locked on the TV or whatever.
right.
And like
Yes,
then
we had done 2 or 3 studio sessions leading right up to that point
okay.
to record like the basics and stuff for this album and these singles and stuff. So fortunately for us, we had been able to do all of the like all of us together in a room stuff right before that happened.
Okay.
And then it actually worked out really well where we're able to do all of the rest of it, overdubs, solos, vocals, any other production and things, just really like with no time pressure, because it's like ideally you put out an album and then you go on tour or whatever. So that was not going to happen. So we're like,
Hmm.
okay, we got kind of a very undetermined amount of time to do this. I mean,
Right.
we were able to do it really well and not have a time pressure and not sacrifice anything to time and get something really cool made.
Was it do you feel like it affected the record at all? Like as far as like sonically, or like you had just, I mean, the time, especially the amount of time you had with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really great. We've never really been able to like have that much time. It was, it's a bittersweet thing because we have this music, we're excited to get it out there, and but we just like the timelines aren't right to sort of do it correctly.
Yeah. I mean, even now things are kind of up and down all the time. It's
Yeah, I
weird.
mean, we've had this thing finished since 2000, or since probably, yeah, last summer.
Wow.
Trying to think about where the hell I was when what year is it? All right, geez. Yeah, pretty much finished up by the summer, and then I mean, I don't know if like when is this coming out?
Uh, Whenever you guys wanted to.
Okay, because it like the 2 things that made it really delayed is vinyl.
You're right. Yeah, the plants being shut down.
Massive delays. So
Yeah,
basically,
that's a buddy of mine struggling with that right now. Him and his band, like they have his record, and they're like, we don't know when it's done, but we don't know when it's gonna come out because we don't know when the vinyl plants are gonna be like able to press it. So we're still waiting.
yeah, I think we had looked at December 12th of last year as a release date, and then because of this, and that was even with vinyl, but then because of this other thing that we decided to do, which is going to be really cool, and this is the stuff that's like nobody knows about this yet, so just be quiet. Is we're turning the album artwork is a board game.
Wow, that is dope.
Yeah, so we invented this board game to be part of the album release, and then creating that is what took a ton of extra time and artwork and everything else. So now it's going to come out in like May.
Okay. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, the release date of May. I didn't know anything about this board game. But I'll make sure to hold the interview until you guys
Yeah,
announce the board game.
if this is supposed to come out before that, just maybe cut that part. But
yeah, but I want to know. I'm curious about the board game, so I don't know if we could spend because I want. I'll figure it out with your side of the camp, but I want to hold it now because I'm curious to hear all about this board game and like what a creative idea that is. Like you have to invent a game. You guys invented a game.
So our sound and light guy Luke, he had spent most of his pandemic becoming he's a big like D&D guy.
Okay.
Super fantasy guy, all this, always has been. But he started drawing maps for D&D games. Like, this is something you can do, I guess. You draw a map, you put it up online, people like buy it, and then they use it for when they play.
Okay.
He like started a Patreon. He's got his own like thing about it. He's like pays his mortgage doing that.
Wow. That's incredible.
Like, he Patreoned so hard that Patreon's like, you know, this is how you fucking do it.
Yeah, they're like, here's a playbook page, just what this guy's doing.
So we were talking about all that one day, and I think Eli was like, it'd be so cool if we could like make this album a game somehow. And so just that like started the wheels. And because Luke makes all of these maps and stuff, you know, this is what he's been doing. He's been drawing all this stuff. He's a great artist. And so we're like, all right, Luke, can you make us a board game? And so we figured out how to do it. And it's this whole infinity symbol is like the track you put the pieces on, and each square is a song name from our previous albums. And the whole thing is like this idea, you're like trapped in the Dopapod land, and you need to build like a time machine to like get out of it. And like, because all of our songs have this even deeper, we sort of realize that like all of our songs and all of our albums can sort of be connected into this like overall conceptual, it's like a 7-album concept album about like travel and being present and all these things. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what the game's about loosely. And so we like made the board. He drew the board up, and then it was like, cool, now we have to make a game. And in the end, I pretty much made all of it. It's just sort of like, what happens is you land on a square, it has a song title, you look at the chart, and the chart tells you something you have to do, like with like dice or something like that, to achieve a letter of Dopapod. So once you spell out all of the letters, then you go to like the middle part, and that's the portal, and then you do a couple more of those, and then you win the game. So I had to come up with all these like dice challenges and like things to do when you land on the square, and like all these other rules and all these things. And we, yeah. So I had no idea I was going to make a board game.
I was just gonna say, did you play a lot of board games? Like, how did you? Yeah. Or you just kind of? I mean,
it's like pretty simple.
They put that on you. They're like, okay, you're gonna figure out.
Well, the truth is that we were like, we all wanted to collaborate on it and do it, but it ended up being pretty clear that like, I was really motivated to do it. Eli was really motivated to do it, but definitely as far as people who have experience playing board games, I was higher in that realm.
Got it.
I'm not like a mega game nerd, probably like Luke or whatever. That's, Luke was helping me with the overall, things, and we go back and forth. And actually Adam, one of our managers, is a big gamer too. So we had the support team to make sure it was cool. Because that's the thing, is like, you can make this game all day, but like, does it suck?
Right. Did you have like a focus group of people that were going to play it and figure it out?
I played it with a couple friends at first, and like, really figured out, all right, this needs to change. This makes it not fun, because you got to figure out like how long it takes, and like, is it fun to keep going this long? And like, like, is it engaging, where like we've made a bunch of rules where now you can like steal letters from people, or all these, it makes it a little more active.
Right.
And fun. So, and the idea too is maybe in the future we'll create separate sets of rules, because really you have a board, and then you can just kind of make up your own game. So, all these sort of things can happen. Even fucking Uno comes out with like new versions,
right? Of course. So, yeah.
So the idea, there's like a website where there's like other ways to play, or like whatever. But for now, we just made the one game, just, and we wanted to make it so that like, you buy the album, you're like, holy shit, it's a board game. And then you can play with like whatever you have lying around the house. Like, hopefully you got some fucking dice and like a quarter for your game piece, like.
Okay. That was my next question. If you like, if you provided the game pieces, or you just kind of pick your own.
We're going to make some, like a set of game pieces and dice and stuff that will like, you can buy.
Right.
Maybe
right.
Packaged with the album. But at first it's just like, if you just bought this album and you're like, holy shit, this is a board game, you could just play it right away.
Got it. That's so rad. What a creative idea. No one's done that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's done.
That's like blowing my mind. That's so awesome. So you had to obviously base the album artwork off of what the game board was going to look like. And so that's just what he drew for the game board became the album cover.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. That is so awesome. Yeah. So I definitely will. I want to save this interview because I want people to hear all
Yeah.
about this game because this is so rad. And okay.
Yeah, this little segment can come out later.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell me about the record then a little bit. I mean, it sounds like you had it done for a while. Like after it was finished, and you have this game element to it. Are you guys working on new music at this point
Oh,
too?
yeah.
Like, I mean, that's what it's curious because as a musician, I'm sure you're writing constantly, and then you've had this one record that's kind of sitting there, like, okay, we need to get it out, but we're moving steps forward.
Yeah, we are like creatively, 3 years past that album is like what it feels like, as in like,
Yeah.
We're releasing these singles right now, but also we're just like so moved on from that music, like, of course we still love it and it's our thing, but like our excitement is a little different than, like
Right.
the management or the fan base's excitement.
Yeah, you guys are probably like, that's awesome, but wait till you hear what,
Totally.
in 3 years, you'll get to hear this amazing song that we wrote.
It's so funny that, like even like this was a different album recording opportunity for us to do this one because we wrote a lot of songs in the studio, and that is something we never really did before. Usually it was like, okay, we have tons of songs written, it's time to put them onto a recorded format, and so we'll go into the studio. And that's why that last one, we did like 20 songs or something and only put out 8 of them because we've had these songs written for the whole time. And then this one, we were able to actually write a bunch just for this album. So they haven't been played yet. There's a couple songs that have been in rotation for a while, but maybe been reworked a little bit for this album. But for the most part, most of this album has never been heard live. And that'll be happening over the next, summer, even right before the album comes out. We were in this feeling of like, it's like a thing to do as like a rock, or just like, a typical band on a label or something. You don't play songs until the album is out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but since Jam World's different and we've never been able to do that, we were like, oh, we should do that this time. That'll be really cool. And then we started working with like a publicist, this PR person, probably who set this up, whatever. And they were like, no, play the songs. Like, you need to like hype everybody up about it. And like, because of the way our scene works too, it'll be a lot of really organic sharing and hyping up about it and stuff. So then it was like, all right, cool. And, also too, we were like, oh, we put so much time and effort into the studio versions. We want that to be what people hear first. But then we started playing some of them live and we're like, oh, this is even better. Like, so, and I'm feeling the idea now to really separate the studio version from a live version. Like the biggest influence in that for me, for example, is like Ween. I don't know if you listen to Ween.
Oh yeah,
but
for sure.
Their studio shit is just like, what is this wild like keyboard toy from Kmart that you guys made this fucking album on? And then you're like, how the hell are we gonna play this live? And then they just go play it, and it's the most epic rock and roll shit that you possibly can.
Right.
So
exactly.
Allow that separation to exist, and then it's like you have even more stuff as a artist. You're like, yeah, this is the weird album version, but then here's our rocking fucking live version. Like,
I love it.
So
that's amazing. Well, Neal, thank you so much for doing this. I can't wait to see the record and play the board game and everything else. So I appreciate your time. I have one more quick question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
I always say, just keep putting out stuff. Don't hold things to be so precious. Like, because something that you think is like the best song you've ever written might be like, not received as well as you'd hope, and you have no control over that. But if you love it, then you love it, and that's fucking awesome. That's like all you can get. And then maybe sometime you write a song that you thought was like maybe not your best, and then everyone loves it, and then fortunately that might gain you some like attention, and then you can show them that song that you think is the best, and then they'll be like, oh, that's fucking awesome too. But really just like not having expectations of how things are going to go, and as such just keep creating, because you never know what's going to hit or what's going to be the best one, or or what you're going to like the most. You know, sometimes we write songs that like at first we're like, yeah, I don't really like this. And then after you play it a long time, you're like, find a new way to do it and whatever. So it's just like, keep putting it out, keep going. Don't hold it so precious, and have fun. And then I just recently thought of this one myself. The only time I've ever messed up performing was when I stopped having fun. Bringing it back